The decision as the transmission ended, Sarah and Marcus sat in stunned silence. The weight of what they had learned was overwhelming. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe, but they had been isolated not because they were unknown, but because they were feared. "Sarah, contact General Vale," Marcus said quietly. "Tell him we need an emergency meeting with the Global Defense Council. And tell him to access the Ragnarok files." Sarah's eyes widened. She had heard rumors of the Ragnarok files, classified military projects that supposedly prepared for impossible scenarios. But she had never imagined they might be real. "Marcus, what are the Ragnarok files?" she asked. Marcus smiled sadly. "They're humanity's contingency plan for fighting an interstellar war. Plans that were developed based on the assumption that someday, somewhere, humans would face an enemy that wanted to destroy all life on Earth." As alarms began sounding throughout the Mars Deep Space Station, Sarah realized that everything was about to change. The aliens had called for help, but they had no idea what kind of help they were about to receive. The awakening General Vale's voice came through the communication system, calm and steady despite the chaos around them. "Dr. Webb, Captain Chen, I want you to send a message to all the surviving alien civilizations. Tell them that Earth has received their distress call." "What should we tell them about our response?" Sarah asked. Vale's smile was cold and determined. "Tell them that the human race has been preparing for this war for longer than they realize. Tell them that they're about to discover why every species in the galaxy has been keeping detailed files about human warfare." As Sarah began composing the response message, she felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. Humanity was about to step onto the galactic stage, not as peaceful explorers, but as the apex predators that the aliens had always feared they might become. The Void Swarm had consumed 47 civilizations, but they had never encountered a species from a Category Omega death world. They had never faced an enemy that treated impossible odds as a challenge rather than a death sentence in 3 months. The galaxy would discover why the aliens had been right to fear humanity. The dormant extinction event was about to wake up, and the universe would never be the same. Asterisk, the Death World responds. The Hidden Fleet 3 weeks after the first alien distress call, Admiral Jessica Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching as humanity's greatest secret revealed itself. Around her, emerging from the shadows of the outer solar system, came a fleet that officially didn't exist. "Admiral, all ships are reporting ready," Commander Lisa Park announced from the tactical station. "The Ragnarok protocol is fully activated." Jessica nodded, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing 200 warships materializing around her flagship. These weren't the small patrol vessels that most people thought represented Earth's space navy. These were the products of 50 years of secret military development, ships designed for a war that everyone hoped would never come. "Commander Park, open a channel to Earth Command," Jessica ordered. "It's time to let the world know what we've been building." The main screen flickered to life, showing General Vale's face in the war room beneath the Rocky Mountains. Behind him, Jessica could see dozens of officers working frantically at stations displaying tactical information from across the galaxy. "Admiral Torres, status report," Vale commanded. "All Ragnarok assets are online and ready for deployment," Jessica replied. "The Titan-class battleships are performing within expected parameters. The Wraith-class stealth ships are invisible to all known detection methods, and the Forge-class mobile construction vessels are ready to begin field manufacturing." Vale smiled grimly. "Excellent. Dr. Webb has finished translating the tactical data from our alien friends. It seems the Void Swarm has never encountered organized resistance. Every species they've faced has either fled or been overwhelmed by their numbers. Sir, that's about to change, Jessica said. Permission to begin Phase 1 of the counterattack. Granted. And Admiral, show these creatures why the aliens were right to fear us. The ancient witness in the ruins of the Kalari homeworld. An ancient being named Elder Kethmori crawled through the rubble of what had once been a magnificent city. At over 800 years old, Kethmori was one of the few survivors who remembered the first human radio signals detected by the Galactic Council. So, the Death Worlders finally wake, Kethmori whispered to himself, his aged voice carrying a mixture of terror and hope. I warned the Council this day would come. His memories drifted back to the debates that had raged for decades among the galaxy's civilizations. The first human radio signals had been detected in 1924, broadcasting primitive entertainment and news. But as the years passed, those signals had become more disturbing. The aliens had listened in horror as humans broadcast their wars live, as they celebrated violence in their entertainment, as they created weapons capable of destroying their own planet. When the first television signals reached alien space, showing images of human warfare, the Galactic Council had immediately classified Earth as a Category Omega threat. They said we were overreacting, Kethmori muttered, remembering the younger species who had argued that humans were just another primitive civilization. They said no species could be as dangerous as our projections suggested. But Kethmori had studied the human signals more carefully than anyone else. He had watched their wars, analyzed their tactics, and recognized something that terrified him. Humans didn't just fight to survive. They fought to win, no matter the cost. A shadow passed overhead, and Kethmori looked up to see one of the Void Swarm entities descending toward the planet's surface. The creature was massive, its biomechanical form pulsing with organic energy. But for the first time since the swarm had arrived, Kethmori wasn't afraid. You have no idea what you've awakened, he said to the descending creature. The humans are coming. First Contact Colonel Ryan Mitchell checked his equipment one final time as his dropship approached the Kolari system. Around him, of Earth's most elite soldiers prepared for humanity's first combat operation in interstellar space. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were the product of decades of enhancement programs, humans optimized for warfare in environments that would kill unprotected people in seconds. Colonel, we're picking up massive biosignatures throughout the system, reported Sergeant Maria Santos from the navigation console. These things are huge. Each one is registering as large as a space station. Ryan studied the tactical display, analyzing the enemy formations. The Void Swarm entities moved in predictable patterns, following the same tactics they had used. Conquer dozens of other star systems, but they had never faced humans before. Santos, patch me through to Admiral Torres, Ryan ordered. Admiral, we're beginning our reconnaissance mission. Target designation Alpha is a standard swarm harvester. We'll use it to test their defensive capabilities. Understood, Colonel, Torres replied. Remember, this is about gathering intelligence. We need to know how they fight before we commit. The main fleet, Ryan's team landed on a large asteroid near the first Void Swarm entity. The creature was the size of a city, its organic hull pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. As they approached, Ryan could see thousands of smaller organisms moving across its surface like antibodies in a bloodstream. Colonel, I'm detecting communication. Signals between the entities reported Dr. Alex Chen, the team's xenobiologist. They're operating as a hive mind. Each creature is sharing information instantaneously with all the others. Ryan smiled. That's their first mistake. Hive minds are efficient, but they're not creative. They can't adapt to unexpected tactics. The team began their assault using techniques that no other species had ever attempted. Instead of attacking the creature directly, they began interfering with its communication systems. They planted devices that generated false signals, creating confusion in the hive mind network. "Colonel, it's working," Santos reported. "The creature is responding to our fake signals. It thinks there are threats that don't exist." As the void swarm entity began attacking empty space, Ryan's team gathered crucial intelligence about its weaknesses. The creatures were incredibly powerful, but they were also predictable. They had conquered every other species using the same tactics, and they had never needed to adapt. "This is going to be easier than we thought," Ryan said into his communicator. "These things have never faced an enemy that fights dirty." The Hive Queen's confusioned within the largest void swarm entity. Hive Queen Sutara felt something she had never experienced before: confusion. For thousands of years, she had led the swarm from system to system, consuming all life they encountered. Every species had responded in predictable ways, either fleeing or mounting conventional defenses that were easily overwhelmed. The desperate call, the signal that changed everything. Captain Sarah Chen had been monitoring deep space communications for 12 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The massive array of dishes surrounding Mars' deep space station were all pointing in the same direction, trembling with the force of incoming transmissions. Every screen in the control room blazed with data streams, and the computers were struggling to process the sheer volume of information flooding in. "Dr. Webb, you need to see this immediately," Sarah called across the bustling command center. Her voice carried an edge of panic that made everyone stop what they were doing. Dr. Marcus Webb rushed over from his linguistics laboratory, his coffee mug forgotten on the workbench. At 55, he was the galaxy's leading expert on alien communications, though most people didn't know there were aliens to communicate with. His weathered hands flew across the control panel as he began analyzing the incoming signals. "Sarah, this is impossible," Marcus whispered, his face pale. "These signals are coming from 47 different star systems. That's not just one alien species calling for help. This is an entire sector of the galaxy screaming in terror." Sarah pulled up the signal analysis on her main screen. The data was overwhelming. Each transmission carried the desperate tone of civilizations facing extinction. But what made her blood run cold was the fact that every single message was directed specifically at Earth. "How do they even know we exist?" Sarah asked, her voice barely audible over the humming of the computers. "We've been listening to space for decades, but we've never sent anything back." Marcus began translating the first message, his fingers dancing across the alien language processing system. What he found made his hands shake. The message was from a species called the Kaleri Federation, and it wasn't just asking for help. It was begging. "Sarah, patch me through to General Vale immediately," Marcus ordered. "This is a code black situation." Within minutes, General Harrison Vale's stern face appeared on the secure communication screen. Vale was a man who had seen 3 wars and never lost a battle, but even he looked concerned when he saw the chaos in the control room. "What's the situation, Dr. Webb?" Vale asked, his military bearing evident even through the digital connection. "General, We're receiving distress signals from nearly 50 alien civilizations, Marcus explained rapidly. They're all facing extinction from something they call the Void Swarm. But sir, there's something else. They know about us. They know about Earth. Vale's expression hardened. What do you mean they know about us? Marcus pulled up the translated portions of the messages. According to these transmissions, multiple alien species have been monitoring Earth for over 2 centuries. They've been studying our radio signals, our television broadcasts, our military communications. General, they have detailed files on every major human conflict since the American Civil War. The hidden truth Sarah watched as more translations came through the system. What she read made her question everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the universe. The aliens hadn't just been watching Earth casually. They had been studying human behavior with the intensity of scientists observing a dangerous predator. Dr. Webb, look at this, Sarah said, pointing to a section of the Kalari message. They're not just asking for help. They're apologizing for asking for help. Why would they apologize? Marcus translated more of the message, and his face went white. Because they're terrified of us, Sarah. According to this, the Galactic Council classified Earth as a Category Omega world. That's their highest danger classification. Danger. Sarah laughed nervously. We can barely get a colony ship to Mars. How are we dangerous to species that can travel between stars? The answer came in the next batch of translations. The aliens hadn't classified Earth as dangerous because of human technology. They had classified it as dangerous because of human nature. The messages contained detailed psychological profiles of human behavior, studies of human warfare, and analysis of human adaptability. They call us the dormant extinction event, Marcus read aloud. They believe that humanity is the most potentially destructive species in the galaxy, but that we haven't realized our full potential yet. They've been hoping we would remain isolated on Earth forever. General Vale's voice cut through the control room. Dr. Webb, I need you to translate every word of those messages, and I need you to find out exactly what this Void Swarm is. The enemy, revealed as Marcus and Sarah worked through the night, the picture became clearer and more terrifying. The Void Swarm wasn't just another alien species. It was a hive-mind entity that had been consuming entire star systems for thousands of years. Unlike other conquering species, the Void Swarm didn't want territory or resources. It wanted to devour all life in the galaxy. General, I've got the tactical information, Marcus reported during an emergency briefing at dawn. The Void Swarm has already consumed 12 star systems in the past 6 months. They move like a plague of locusts, stripping every planet of all organic matter before moving on to the next system. Vale studied the tactical displays showing the swarm's movement patterns. How many ships are we talking about? Sir, that's the terrifying part, Sarah interjected. It's not ships, it's living creatures. Each Void Swarm entity is the size of a small moon, and they travel in groups of hundreds. They don't use technology as we understand it. They are technology. The briefing room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity was facing an enemy that had conquered thousands of civilizations, an enemy that treated entire star systems as food sources. What about the aliens who sent these messages? Vale asked. Are any of them still alive? Marcus pulled up the latest transmissions. Some are still fighting, but they're losing badly. The Coleri Federation has already lost 3 of their 5 homeworlds. The Zephyrian Empire is down to their last planet. Sir, every species that has encountered the Void Swarm has been wiped out within months. the secret files. As the day progressed, more shocking revelations emerged from the alien messages. Hidden within the distress calls were data files that revealed the true extent of alien knowledge about humanity. The aliens hadn't just been watching Earth's radio signals. They had been conducting detailed studies of human psychology, human warfare, and human adaptability. "Sarah, you need to see this," Marcus called out, his voice filled with amazement. "The aliens have been running computer simulations of human military tactics for decades. They've been trying to understand how humans would fight in space battles." Sarah looked at the data files and felt her worldview shift completely. The aliens had studied every human war, every human conflict, every human adaptation to hostile environments. They had created psychological profiles of human soldiers, analysis of human creativity under pressure, and detailed studies of human pack behavior. "Look at this assessment," Sarah said, reading from one of the files. "It says that humans are unique among known species because we actually become more dangerous when outnumbered. Most species become less effective when facing superior numbers. But humans develop new tactics and become more creative." The files revealed that the aliens had been both fascinated and terrified by human unpredictability. While other species followed logical patterns in warfare, humans seemed to thrive on chaos and adaptation. The aliens had concluded that humanity was a species that could potentially defeat any enemy, but only if they were motivated to fight. General Marcus said during another briefing, "There's something else in these files. The aliens have been debating for decades whether to make contact with Earth. Most of them were against it because they were afraid of what humans might do if we gained access to interstellar travel." Vale smiled grimly. "Well, Dr. Webb, it looks like they're about to find out." The dying ambassador late that evening, as Sarah and Marcus continued their translation work, they received a direct communication from a dying alien ship. The transmission was weak and filled with static, but they could make out the image of a creature unlike anything they had ever seen. The alien was tall and graceful, with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors as it moved. Its large eyes were filled with pain and desperation, and its voice carried the weight of a civilization facing extinction. "I am Ambassador Xi of the Kalari Federation," the creature said, its words translated by the computer. "I am the last survivor of my diplomatic cause. My ship is dying, and my people are gone. But I must deliver this message to the species called humans." Sarah and Marcus watched in fascination as the alien ambassador struggled to continue its message. Despite its obvious pain, the creature's voice carried a strange note of hope. "We have watched your species for many generations," Xi continued. "We have studied your wars, your conflicts, your endless capacity for adaptation. We classified you as dangerous because we feared what you might become. But now, facing extinction, we realize that your danger might be our salvation." The ambassador's image flickered as its ship's power systems began to fail. "The Void Swarm is coming to your system. They will arrive in 3 of your months. If you choose to flee, we understand. But if you choose to fight, know that you carry the hopes of 47 civilizations with you. The decision, asterisk." But now, her scouts were reporting impossible things. Small groups of the new species were somehow interfering with the swarm's communication networks. They were using tactics that made no sense, attacking from unexpected directions, and somehow remaining invisible to the swarm's sensors. "This species fights incorrectly," Sotara communicated to her sub-queens. "They do not follow standard patterns. They do not respond to overwhelming force with surrender. The response from her sub-queens was equally confused. Queen Mother, our harvesting drones report that these creatures do not fear death. They sacrifice themselves to damage single organisms. This behavior is illogical. Sotara had consumed 47 civilizations, but she had never encountered a species that seemed to enjoy fighting impossible odds. Every other species had calculated their chances of survival and chosen logical responses. But these humans appeared to become more dangerous when faced with superior numbers. Query: what is the status of the new species home system? Sotara asked. Queen Mother, long-range scouts report unusual activity in the system designated as Sol. The species appears to be mobilizing significant resources. However, their technological level should not pose a threat to the swarm. Sotara felt a strange sensation that her species had no name for. If she had been human, she would have called it dread. For the first time in her existence, she was facing an enemy that didn't behave according to her expectations. The counterattack begins. Admiral Torres watched the tactical display as the first wave of human ships engaged the Void Swarm entities at the edge of the Kaleri system. The battle was unlike anything in recorded history, pitting humanity's technological creativity against the swarm's raw biological power. Admiral, the Wraith-class ships are reporting successful infiltration, Commander Park announced. They've managed to penetrate the swarm's bioholes and are deploying nanite packages. Jessica smiled. The nanites were one of humanity's most creative weapons. Microscopic machines designed to disrupt biological systems from within. No other species had ever developed anything like them, because no other species had humanity's talent for turning anything into a weapon. What about the Titan-class battleships? Jessica asked. They're engaging the larger entities with kinetic bombardment, Park replied. Admiral, the swarm creatures are having difficulty adapting to our tactics. They keep trying to use the same strategies that worked against other species. On the main screen, Jessica could see the battle unfolding. The Void Swarm entities were massive and powerful, but they were also predictable. They had conquered every other species using overwhelming force and superior numbers. They had never needed to develop complex tactics or adapt to unexpected strategies. But humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other, developing new tactics, adapting to new weapons, and learning to overcome any advantage their enemies might have. Every human military doctrine was based on the assumption that the enemy would be stronger, better equipped, and more numerous. Commander, signaled the mobile construction vessels, Jessica ordered. Begin Phase 2 of the operation. Across the battle zone, the Forge-class ships began an operation that would have been impossible for any other species. Using raw materials from destroyed asteroids, they began constructing new weapons and defenses in real time, adapting their designs based on data gathered from the ongoing battle. Admiral, the swarm entities are trying to communicate with us, Park reported. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Put it on the main screen, Jessica ordered. The image that appeared was unlike anything the human crew had ever seen. The Hive Queen was a massive creature of biomechanical complexity, her form constantly shifting and adapting. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of thousands of consumed civilizations. New species, Sotara said, her words translated by the ship's computers. You fight incorrectly. You do not follow standard patterns. Explain your actions. Jessica stood up, her expression calm and confident. We fight to protect our allies. We fight to defend our home. And we fight because we choose to fight. This is illogical, the Hive Queen replied. You cannot defeat the swarm. Every species has fallen before us. Surrender now, and your consumption will be swift." Jessica's smile was cold. "You've never faced a species from a death world before. You've never fought an enemy that was born in chaos and forged in conflict. Your mistake was assuming that all species think like you do." The tide turns as the battle continued. The void. Swarm began to realize that they were facing something unprecedented. The human ships fought with a creativity and adaptability that defied their understanding. When conventional tactics failed, the humans developed new ones. When their weapons were countered, they created different weapons. "Admiral, the swarm is beginning to retreat," Park reported, her voice filled with amazement. "They're actually pulling back from the system." Jessica felt a surge of pride as she watched the tactical display. For the first time in thousands of years, the Void Swarm was facing an enemy that refused to be consumed. The creatures that had devoured 47 civilizations were retreating before humanity's first interstellar fleet. "Open a channel to all human ships," Jessica ordered. "This is Admiral Torres. Today, we have shown the galaxy that humanity will not go quietly into the dark. We have proven that the species the aliens feared to contact was worth their fear." Across the fleet, human soldiers and officers cheered as they watched the void. Swarm entities fleeing the system. But Jessica knew this was only the beginning. The swarm would return with greater numbers, and humanity would need to be ready. "Commander, signal Earth Command," Jessica said. "Tell them to begin Phase 3 of the Ragnarok Protocol. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten a Death World species." The new apex predator, Elder Kethmori, watched from the ruins of his world as the human fleet pursued the retreating Void Swarm entities. For the first time in months, he felt something approaching hope. The creatures that had consumed his people were fleeing, driven away by the very species the galaxy had feared to contact. "The humans have done what 47 civilizations could not," he whispered to himself. "They have made the devourers afraid." As the human ships passed over his position, Kethmori received a communication signal. The image that appeared was of a human woman in military uniform, her expression compassionate but determined. "Elder Kethmori," Admiral Torres said, "this is Admiral Jessica Torres of the Earth Defense Force. We received your people's distress call. We're sorry we couldn't arrive in time to save your world, but we promise you this: the Void Swarm will not consume another innocent species." Kethmori felt tears streaming down his face. "Admiral Torres, I have lived for 800 years. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen the galaxy's greatest powers crumble before the swarm. But today, I have seen something I never thought possible. I have seen them retreat. Elder, we're going to establish a refugee camp for survivors," Torres replied. "And we're going to hunt down every Void Swarm entity in the galaxy. They wanted to treat life as food. Now they're going to learn what it means to be prey." As the communication ended, Kethmori looked up at the stars. The galaxy had spent centuries fearing what humanity might become if they ever gained access to interstellar travel. Now they knew humanity hadn't become conquerors or destroyers. They had become protectors. But the Void Swarm was about to learn that being protected by humans meant that anyone who threatened innocent life would face the full fury of a species that had been preparing for interstellar war for longer than most civilizations had existed. The dormant extinction event had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. The age of the Void Swarm was ending, and the age of humanity as the galaxy's apex predator had begun. Asterisk.